Hey there, welcome to a new video. This time I will show you my framework for building a B2B SaaS content strategy. If you've watched my video on the 30, 60, 90-day plan, you might recognize some elements from this framework. That is expected, as in general, you want to build a new strategy when you take on a new project or when you join a new company. However, if you've already been with the company for longer, you might not need to go through all the steps. As a reminder, the framework I'm going to show is for SaaS companies. However, the setup works for service companies and B2C companies as well. Before we jump in, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you get notified when I upload new content. Let's get started. This framework consists of 5 phases: orient, analyze, plan, develop, and implement. I will first walk you through each of them at high level and then we dive deeper. The first phase, orientation, helps you understand the current state of things. From what content you have to how the content is performing to who is involved in creating the content. You will start with stakeholder interviews, mainly commercial teams but also product teams, to understand the ways of working and where you overlap. Also, you want to know who your subject matter experts are and who are the people who can contribute to creating new content. Next, you're gonna look at existing marketing documentation. Anything from strategy documents to brand book, positioning, or messaging framework. You will want to know what is your category, what is your playing field, who your competitors are, how do you talk about your product, who is your target audience and what segments do you focus on, what are their pain points, their needs, the benefits they get from your product. Also, you will want to know if you target a specific type of customer. So, your ICP criteria will be important in this step. Next, you will look at the current processes, the tools that you're using, and you will do an initial content inventory to get an idea of all the assets produced. Finally, in the orientation phase, you will look at the data infrastructure and flows to make sure that everything is in order and set up for tracking the content performance correctly. At the end of the orientation phase, you should have a clear idea of the big picture. Next, it's time to move to phase 2, analyzing. And here, you're gonna do a couple of deep dives to understand performance better. So you will start with a content audit, as well as an SEO and social media audit. I made another video where I show how to do a content audit for a SaaS company. I will link it below this one. The content audit will show you both the quantity and the quality of the content you're producing, and will cover not just blog content, but also landing pages, video content, basically all the content assets that you've created until now. The SEO audit will focus not only on on-page SEO or on-site SEO, but also on technical aspects and off-site data. You want to know that your website is healthy enough to be able to perform. Next, for the social media audit, you want to look at both organic and paid. Even if you're not directly responsible for managing SEO or for managing social media, you still need to understand how your content performs in these channels. So, if you're producing content on the website, for example, does it actually rank? Does it help you get traffic from search engines? And for social media, does it attract the right audience? Are people engaging with your content and are you generating leads with the content used in paid campaigns? Moving on, you want to get a deep dive of your product to understand how it functions and how customers are using it. For this, you should do interviews with your product team, but also look at product usage data. Another step in the analysis phase is interviewing your sales and customer success colleagues. You want to know which are your best customers, what are their reasons for buying, what objections do they usually have, and why do you win or why do you lose. All this will be qualitative data. Next to it, you want to look at your customer journeys to understand which channels perform best at attracting your best customers, but also what blockers your customers usually encounter. This will help you plan your marketing funnels. And once your funnels are clear, you will be able to map the content needs as well. Next, you will look at competitors to understand what type of content they produce and how they distribute it. In this step, you should also look at their paid assets, their paid campaigns, see if they join specific events, and if they are using influencers or thought leaders in their social media initiatives. All this information should be enough to help you understand where your content gaps are. From there, you will be able to create a proper content strategy to help you achieve your goals. So in the third phase, you will be planning your content strategy. For this, you will start with your goals and targets. And these are not just content goals, but the general business goals, translated then to marketing goals, and finally to content goals. Next to the goals and targets, you want to have a clear measurement framework in place. This will show you not only what numbers you need to hit, but also how to get there. So based on the measurement framework, you will be able to choose your focus segments, as well as your channels and distribution flows. Next, in the planning phase, you will look at the themes and topics that you need to own. What do you need to talk about and what should your content cover, so that you get visibility and attract the right audience. After themes and topics, you want to plan your content types. Here, again, you will look at all the types of content, so not just blog articles, for example, but also landing pages, video content, white papers, customer testimonials, case studies, and so on. Once you know in big lines what type of content you need to create, what do you need to talk about, and what channels you should be present in, you can also put on paper your content lifecycle management process. This is important to keep things structured and understand who's going to work on what. You're almost done with planning. Now you can identify the content needs, what templates you need, what tools you need, what tracking and reporting elements are missing, and finally, what budget you need to reach your goals. The fourth phase, develop, is where you build your actual content strategy. The information from the previous phase should be enough for you to build a proper roadmap that shows you what to do and when. Also, dependencies should be clear in this stage. Next to your roadmap, which is more high level and more strategic in nature, you will have your actual implementation plan. This will include all the different initiatives from the roadmap broken down into smaller parts. The roadmap, along with the implementation plan and the findings from the previous phases, will form the basis of the content strategy document. I will link an example of content strategy document below this video. The last phase in this framework is taking action or implementing your plan. You will most likely start with keyword research to make sure that the content you create will be found. Then you will plan your content calendar and you will start working on content and campaign briefs and outlines for writers. Once these are in place, the content production can start. Here, you will have both content writing and creative production, so things like video production, design, and so on. In parallel with the implementation, you will need to make sure the reporting infrastructure is in place or being set up. Same with paid campaigns. You will need to work with your colleagues from performance marketing or from growth marketing to set up the campaigns as soon as you have content available. As you can see, there's a lot that goes into creating a B2B content strategy. To keep things organized and structured, I usually like to document everything in a Miro board that gives me the big picture overview of the first phase, orientation. Here is an example of the setup that I use. I generally start by documenting the audience overview. Here, I first have the ICP criteria, so the geographies or the countries targeted, the languages we focus on, company sizes, and industries targeted. Then I break this down into different segments. And for each segment, I write down the job title and seniority that we go after, as well as the pain points, the challenges, the triggers, so why do they search for a product like ours, when do they start searching, what is happening at that moment, and also the benefits they are trying to achieve. Finally, I write down the channels, the communities, and the groups that they are present in. Then I look at the messaging framework. Here, I write down the brand promise and our brand narrative, and then for each segment, I document our main USP as well as the main message or storyline that we use. Also, for each segment, I write down our differentiators, as well as the pain points, challenges, and benefits. I like to structure it in this way so that when I create content, I know what exactly to say for each segment and each content piece. Then I look at our themes and topics. Again, I like to split this per segment, and for each segment, I include informational topics, educational one, social proof, and commercial topics. Then I look at the content lifecycle. Here we go through a series of stages from ideation and keyword and topic research to planning, so splitting the work into different tasks and assigning responsibilities to team members, then scheduling the creation, publication, and distribution of content. Next, we have creation or curation of content, reviewing and approval, localization if it's the case, templating if you are using, for example, a headless CMS and you need to create in the front end different templates. Then we have the content review, adjustments, tracking, and publication. Once that is done, we go into the distribution phase, as well as performance analysis and reporting. At specific time intervals, I like to do also optimization and maintenance. Another thing that goes into my content strategy board is the marketing KPIs. Here I like to look at the full funnel and map the numbers for each stage in the lifecycle of a customer. So starting with the acquisition channel, then going through each stage and just writing down the numbers for leads, SQLs, opportunities, and closed won. I also like to see the conversion rates, the platform cost or the channel cost, the cost per lead, and the ROI per channel. This overview table serves as the basis for the analytics setup. In the end, we don't want to do this reporting manually, so we're going to build a dashboard to track the marketing performance in real time. For the content side, I like to have the same setup, but also to track the leading indicators, so things like impressions, visitors, clicks, click-through rates, referrals, and so on. Next in my content strategy board, I have the distribution channels. It is important to write this down because each channel requires a different approach and uses different formats to meet specific needs of the audience. In general, I like to say that the website and the blog are meant to educate the audience. Social media channels such as LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and so on are meant to engage, and channels like YouTube or podcasts are meant to entertain. So if you split it like this, it's much easier to understand what you should expect from each channel, but also what type of content and what format you should create for each of them. Next, I have the marketing and sales funnel. This is important both from a process and from a tooling perspective, because you want to know what are the stages that a customer goes through from being acquired to becoming a customer, but you also want to know what are the data flows. So what exactly is tracked, where, and how does the data move from one tool to the other? When you do this exercise and map the sales and marketing funnel, you might discover that different teams call things differently. For example, what you call an MQL might not be what sales considers a qualified lead. So it's really important to go through this exercise with the commercial team. Finally, we get to the content types. I generally structure this into different packages. So for example, for the inbound motion, we need specific content types, while for paid initiatives, we might need different content types. I also like to have the content marketing roadmap on the same board. What I do here is map not only the timeline, so the upcoming months, but also the different stages of the funnel, and then distribute the content initiatives. This helps me see where we have dependencies, but also if the workload of the team is too high. The competitor analysis is also included in this board. Generally, I have a working document that's outside of the strategy board, and here I only write down the findings. So for each competitor, I write down how do they position themselves, which segments are they targeting, what propositions do they offer, as well as why do we win and why do we lose against them. I look at the main content types they produce and their main distribution channels. Finally, depending on how big the team is, you might want to include your paid creative pipeline in the same board or have a separate board for it. But it's important to have a clear overview of what paid campaigns you're running, as well as what content you need for each of them. And you should break this down into the different funnel stages to be able to prioritize the types of content that are lacking. For example, if you are focusing on lead generation, you will want to create first the content needed for lead gen. While if you need to build more brand awareness, you're gonna prioritize demand gen content. I hope this was helpful. In the coming weeks, I will upload a video for each of these topics, going from the orientation phase to analyzing, planning, developing, and implementing the plan. So make sure to like this video and to subscribe so that you get notified when I upload the next videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.